but also that the most important thing, I think, to solve this problem, that is the problem of public education in general,
Mhm.
at least as a first step, is school choice, where schools are competing to deliver the best level of education, where parents can send their kid to a school. Basically, you'd start with all parents get a voucher.
Yeah.
You take that voucher to the school you want to send your kid to.
So
Uh,
your tax dollars go to that
School,
school.
yes.
But
And
can't that lead to schools being shut down because not enough people want to go? And is that a bad thing?
no, if the school's a bad school because not enough people want to go, then it should be shut down.
But I want my kids to go to that school.
Hmm. Well,
But it's
then,
going to get shut down because there's not enough others who want their kids to go to that
yeah,
school. What do I do then?
but no one else has the obligation to go to that school because you want your kids to go to that school.
No, no,
Yeah, and there's obviously a problem if, or it's either there's a problem or there is a better alternative that fit with their family. Just because those alternatives may not fit with your family doesn't mean that they should have something taken from
exactly.
them.
But isn't that then a certain form for government or maybe not government overreach, but overreach from the rest of society because they are then deciding that I have to send my kids potentially to a school that I don't necessarily.
You do that now. At least in that situation,
Yeah,
you have more choice.
yeah.
And I'm saying, as I
Good
said
point.
in the
Good point.
beginning, that would, in my view, be the first step. Ideally speaking, I mean, if I were made president tomorrow, which I'm turning 35 this month, so I qualify. No.
You do?
If I were going to be made president, one of the first things I would do is get rid of the Department of Education entirely. And restore education to the state level and allow each state to determine how education policy is going to be run
So
at the state level.
I want to say then real quick, because to remove the Department of Education in your scenario doesn't mean that there's no guidance, there's no guidelines, there's no oversight. It's just that oversight is taken away federally,
Yes.
and the oversight drops to the state.
And then you have 50 different experiments competing with each other
Because
and you see which one succeeds, which one does well, and
yeah,
this is all for the sake of the children you're trying to
yes,
educate. Right now, it's not working. We can see that it's not working.
yeah.
The federal one size Department of Education system is not working. Over the last 70 years, for example, the number of bureaucrats and non-teaching professionals in the school system has increased 700 to 800%.
Yeah.
Whereas the number of put it this way, that is 7 to 8 times more than the number of students that have increased there.
Yeah.
And teachers, I think,
So
is around
something's out of whack.
200 or 300%. The spending per pupil has skyrocketed.
Yes.
And this year alone is the highest it's been in almost 2 decades. It's now at close to $15,000 per student.
But isn't that, let's talk about messaging. I think that would be a great idea to bring the oversight, the guidance, the funding a little closer to home by turning it over to the states. Take it away from federal and turn it over to the states. But in the messaging, nobody says that. They just say, let's get rid of the Department of Education. Betsy DeVos, Ted Cruz, DeSantis. I never hear them say, take away the Department of Education, and let the states. They never, that part does not get said at all.
Or at least it doesn't get airtime. Ted Cruz and DeSantis and Betsy Davos. I mix her name up.
What did I say? Davos.
Yeah, it's easy to mix her name up with that Swiss town where the World Economic Forum meets. But in any case, I've listened to all of them speak on this subject at length, and they do discuss this, where it should be more localized and allow for competition in the education, because competition is a healthy thing. Competition breeds better results. And if you're in a system that has
isn't that what we want for our kids? We want better results. We want
instead of the system we have now, where teachers are no longer responsible to the student or the family, the teachers are responsible to the union and the bureaucracy, and that's a big machine that's only growing. And imagine it's $15,000 per student in America. $15,000 per student. This is regardless of location. If you look at federal spending on education, that's $15,000. Now, if you let that go into more open market where competition was key, the price of education would come down drastically.
Absolutely.
And the quality of education would go up. Now, I said that would be a first step. In my view, eventually it would become almost entirely privatized through a scaffolding approach. And because you don't want to rip the rug out from under people. You don't want to say,
Well, you would create a have and have not situation,
you would, and
which
as I say, you wouldn't want to rip the rug out
yeah,
underneath people. You would want to show them people, because when you start talking about get rid of the Department of Education, well, people get really
mhm,
nervous when you say that. Well, what about the children? And appeal to the authority. We need this because it's the only way we know how. When really
yeah,
that's not the case. It's the status quo that's been in place, and
yeah,
it is a failing status quo
yes,
by any metric.
yes,
And so the idea in that sense is to introduce, with the public spending that exists now, but introduce it in a way that opens to competition and allows the governance
yeah.
of school to happen at a more local level. And then I think people will see, okay, this is
That's a
working.
much more democratic process than the current one,
Yeah.
if you ask me.
Yes, absolutely.
It puts it in the hands of a layer of government that's much closer to home.
Yeah. And
It's
if I
much
don't
more
like the
representative.
policy of,
It's much more representative of the people.
yes, and if I
You
don't
know,
like the policy of one school, if I don't like what they are introducing at that school, or how they are educating children at that school, I say, well, um, it's not for me and my family. It doesn't mean that it's not for the families that are there, but
yeah,
it should be easy for me to then just take that money
yeah.
and go give it to a school that teaches my kids the way I want.